Welcome. I'm Susan Kane. I'm the Dean of the School of Media and Journalism. I'm glad to have you here on a Thursday afternoon. And it feels right at home that you'll sit in the back of the room. Anybody wants to come down front can, like you in the back there, but we won't push it. I want to welcome you to the Reed Sarratt Lecture 2016. And we are so pleased to bring you a national leader in the field of public relations. And this school lecture is an important one for us. It's named after Reed Sarratt, and he was really a giant in Southern journalism. And he graduated from this school in 1937. That's a long time ago, even for me. In fact, it's so long ago, there was no PR in this school. We did not have that major. And, you know, some people might say PR wasn't a real profession at that time, but a lot has happened in that time. Today, it's estimated that public relations is a $10.7 billion business, $10.7 billion annually. PR has grown exponentially in the digital age, and it is really a field that is at the front line of change. It is diversified, it's challenged, and it's exciting. Andy Polansky sits at the top of this multi-billion-dollar industry. He is one of the few who has really made it to the top of a global company. And it's not just any company. Weber Shandwick is an award-winning global company. It was named the global agency in 2015 and 2016. There's a lot of competition to get to that. But for me, preparing students for this kind of field, what's really important is the award they won in 2015 and 2014. It's called Best Place to Work by Advertising Age. That means something. They care about what life is like on the job. Now, you might think that the word about a CEO is simply competitive, and that in this changing business, where so much is at stake, so many billions of dollars, that it would take a man as CEO who was all full elbows, tough, hard driving, fast moving. But you would be wrong. Andy Polansky is not a CEO with sharp elbows. His reputation may surprise you. Let me read. He's brains, not bravado. Vision, not vitriol. Collaborator, not combatant. Careful listener, not scene stealer. I didn't write those words. Communication Week did when they picked Andy Polansky as the industry magazine's #1 CEO on their power list 2016. Pretty nice phrases. I bet your wife is really most happy about it, or your mother. But he is powerful, and he knows how to use power. He knows how to use it well. He is a leader who understands himself and has enough confidence to build a business and a profession. Another magazine profile of Andy put it this way in its headline: Andy Polansky, the human touch. He may be a people's person and well-liked, but that doesn't mean he isn't fiercely competitive. He is. He wouldn't be where he is on this company if he wasn't. But he believes that winning for him means that everyone wins. He's a team player. Polansky has more than 30 years in the business. He graduated from the College of New Jersey. I'm very happy to say he now serves on the board of his alma mater. He cares what happens in higher education. And he worked his way up through the business by building skills, confidence, and clients. He had his first big management job before he was 30. He's running the PR agency's New York office. It was a small boutique office, about 38, kept merging with other companies. He's now got 4,000 employees. 38 to 4,000. It's a big jump. How do you make it to the top? How do you change as the business changes? What is the job of a PR executive in this era of social media? How do you handle reputation and a public that simply doesn't trust PR, let alone journalism? What do our students need to know? Is this a business for those who want meaning in their lives? What is the secret to leadership? These are just some of the questions we're going to ask Andy Polansky, this careful listener. We are very pleased, Andy, that you said yes when we knocked on your door and asked you to join us tonight. Will you all give him a warm Tar Heel welcome?
That's a lot to live up to, that intro. Thank you so much, Dean King. Very warm intro. And thank you all for welcoming me here. I've had a fantastic day already. Sat through a couple of classroom sessions, and just walking around this campus, I've always heard so much about and only saw through the lens of the television when I was watching some sporting events. So it's been a lot of fun and quite frankly really interesting for me. It's as much as I like to share what's on my mind and what I think some of the key issues are in the industry. It's important for me to hear what's on your minds as well. So hopefully, and interesting too. So hopefully we'll get into some of that dialogue. But I did want to share some thoughts with you about our business and what I think the opportunities are. I think you have a lot to look forward to. I am so optimistic about this profession. I've been in this business, as Dr. King said, for more than 30 years. I don't want to admit that all the time. I will to you all. And I don't think there's ever been a time where I felt there's more opportunity. And I think public relations people have never been held in higher regard and play a really important role. But I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. I couldn't resist the temptation of just giving you a little bit of a sense of my firm, Weber Shandwick. So I'll start with that. Dr. King mentioned we're one of the world's leading communications, public relations engagement firms. We're wholly owned by Interpublic. As some of you may know, there's some big holding companies, they're called holding companies in the marketing services arena. WPP, Omnicom, Publicis, Interpublic, my company. So we're one of the important companies in their portfolio. We, Weber Shandwick, have about 4,000 people. We're in 34 countries around the world. And with a network of partner firms, we expand to 80 countries. And together we speak more than 65 languages. So very much a global enterprise. We represent about half of the Fortune 100 companies. It's not uncommon for us to represent those companies in 30, 40, 50 markets around the world, helping them as their agency partner, providing advice in all these different markets. About 60% of our business is marketing oriented, and about 40% is corporate and public affairs. I'm pleased that Dr. King pointed out something that I'm really proud of, just our reputation as a really great employer. More than 10 people at Weber Shandwick would recommend coming to work for Weber Shandwick to a friend or a colleague. So that's something that I think is really important as you all think about your own career aspirations. What kind of culture does the company have? What kind of reputation does it have as an employer? We represent brands across all different industry sectors. We do show you a little bit of the sense by the numbers here. But we do corporate reputation work, we do consumer marketing work. These days you hear a lot about content marketing, that's a big part of our business now. Employee engagement, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is a fast-growing part of our business. Crisis, healthcare, public affairs, technology, you name it. Our business is very diversified. You've heard of some of our clients. We have locally here, we're really proud to have a client relationship with Lenovo. I know lots of UNC alumni go to work over at Lenovo, and I should mention, by the way, we're really proud to have quite a number of Tar Heels at Weber Shandwick already. I suspect I might be getting more resumes after, or at least I hope I will, after this session. But rather than blather on about Weber Shandwick, I think showing is always better than telling, right? So I just have a really short reel, which I think will reflect the nature of the work we do and the global dimension to our firm. It's the Weber Shandwick live band, by the way. All right, now you know everything you need to know about Ocean. But really, I want to talk about the broader industry and some of the things, important considerations, and some of the things you all should be thinking about as you think about a career. The industry has clearly changed a lot over the years. Not only are we PR counselors for our clients, but increasingly, this has been the spirit of a lot of my conversations today, increasingly handling digital, social, advertising, creative, and content marketing. So there's been a real interesting evolution in the industry over the last couple of years. And I'll talk about that. I'll talk about the changes. But before I do that, I really want to talk about what hasn't changed and what I don't think will change. There's a lot of innovation and disruption happening clearly. But at the core, we're in the intellectual capital business. And it's a creative business. We're in an ideas business. So if that's something that gets you jazzed, public relations, marketing services is a pretty interesting trajectory and career aspiration, in my view. On any given day, clients and stakeholders rely on our expertise to educate, advocate, promote, mitigate, and assess issues and opportunities. All of these qualities have become even more important in an increasingly transparent world. Just think for a minute about the speed and global nature of communications. We must anticipate potential issues and proactively advance important information. How well we do that often has a big impact on corporate reputation and the integrity of an enterprise. What is changing in some instances is how we communicate, how we engage different constituencies across different platforms. So let's take a look at some of the drivers behind that new reality. Clearly, the shifts taking place across communications channels have presented new challenges and opportunities for communicators. We all know that social media has risen dramatically as a source for news. A recent Reuters Institute report shows nearly half of us globally use social media for news each week, almost doubling since 2013. So some of you think Facebook is dead. Far from it. It's thriving. More than a quarter of 18 to 24-year-olds say social media is their main source of news, more than television for the first time. So Facebook is the dominant network for news, on average, all around the globe. It's nearly double second place YouTube. Some markets do buck the trend. Some markets you'll see around the world, newspapers are still thriving. Consumers look to different types of media. That's certainly true in Asia. But I would say overall, that's what the challenge is for communicators. We have to keep up with different user behaviors, trends across platforms, how different people in different demographic groups think, different geographies, cultural sensitivities. We have to consider all that at the same time. Mobile broadband growth is accelerating digital adoption around the world. Smartphones are now a source for news for more than half of global media consumers. In fact, mobile has grown so fast, it's the leading digital platform in the U.S. with regard to time spent. Our mobile-first world is not only changing how companies communicate, but also how they operate. Think about how Uber and Seamless have revolutionized traditional transportation and food delivery experiences. For communicators, it means we need to think beyond what content people see or receive on their phones, and more deeply about how it delivers value and creates an experience. And we need to be mindful of how different people look for different experiences. My 23 and 25-year-old boys send me Snapchat videos with dog faces that disappear in seconds, while my wife, my lovely wife, will spend 10 minutes trying to perfect her photo she's going to put on Instagram. So everybody uses these platforms differently and experiences them differently. But these crazy Snapchat filters really scare me. The one in the middle is kind of how I feel most days when I'm traveling around the world. But enough about that. So across all platforms, the proliferation of visual content is also reshaping communications. The number of photos shared per day has nearly doubled in the last year alone. A long story that used to be told via a press release can now be told through live video or an Instagram post for someone with 3 million followers. And this slide reflects a quick snapshot of how dramatically things have changed just since the 1990s. Video is an increasingly core piece of this visual shift. 10 billion videos are viewed every day on Snapchat, 8 billion on Facebook, and hundreds of millions of hours of video are streamed daily on YouTube. You all probably contribute to that somewhere. This has opened up new opportunities for producers, directors, and video specialists to play an important role in our field. All this change means we have an enormous opportunity to play a bigger, broader, and more significant role as communicators. These numbers paint a picture. Total spending on marketing and communication services globally has increased consistently since 2010, growing nearly 16% by more than $125 billion through 2015. And it's estimated in just 8 years will add almost 15,000 jobs in PR and communications to account for that growth. Probably something you might want to hear, right? Weber Shandwick alone hired 1,200 people last year, almost 500 in North America. The changing role of the Corporate Chief Communications Officer, or CCOs as we often refer to them, is also an interesting indicator about how the industry is changing. In the recent Weber Shandwick study on the rising CCO, we found that nearly 75% of global CCOs listed social media strategy as a core responsibility now. Our new research also shows that employee communications and change management has risen steadily on company agendas. Leaders now recognize that our employers are their best advocates. Making sure employees understand the company, the vision, where it's headed, its values, those are competitive assets today. Finally, 8 in 10 CCOs surveyed said marketing and communications are becoming more intertwined. That makes sense when you consider any company operating in today's complex environment needs to understand how reputation issues inform marketing issues and vice versa. Whether you're studying PR, marketing, advertising, design, data analytics, computer science, film, you'll be able to use your knowledge and expertise in various ways of communications for different types of companies. The opportunity is there. It's a really exciting time. But with this elevated role comes greater responsibility, and I think greater influence on outcomes. As you're continuing to hone your skills, whether it's here on campus or in your next jobs, I encourage you to keep in mind 4 big picture roles that I think are critical for all communicators to play in helping companies thrive. First, we must be navigators. It's crucial to have a global mindset. We need to help steer companies among the many forces that are impacting organizations today. Keep your eyes on global issues, health issues, employee activism, cybersecurity and privacy, macroeconomic challenges, gender equality, sustainability and CSR. There are so many different pressure points in the world we live in today. Challenging regulatory pressures and the influence of activist groups. Just within the past year, we've seen and will continue to see major changes in the global political and economic landscape. Brexit, the upcoming U.S. elections, terrorism and the refugee crisis, just to name a few. All these forces impact company reputations and are putting pressure on how companies and organizations behave. A recent global risk management survey by Aon Risk Consultancy revealed that damage to brand reputation was identified by public and private companies around the world as the #1 risk to business. That isn't surprising when you consider that 60% of a firm's market value is attributed to reputation. That's a conversation I have quite often with CEOs. We know that PR's deep expertise in building and safeguarding reputation before and after a crisis is going to have a significant impact on that valuation. 85% of global consumers say that how a company responds and addresses problems is important in shaping their perceptions, and it influences their buying decisions. So we know it takes an artful balance of different strategies and perspectives to tackle our responsibilities. The mix of social and traditional tools varies by the job at hand, whether it's handling a crisis, announcing earnings, or developing communications for talent attraction. It's our job to know how and when to integrate these tools. That leads me to my next point. These aren't advanced, by the way. Oh, there we go. There we go. Aha. Integrators, that's my second point. Companies are looking for integration in their communication strategies across social, digital, content marketing, advertising, media, so on. The lines are not only blurring across different types of marketing agencies, but inside of corporations as well. Given the reputational environment companies and communicators are operating in, integration must happen. Not only across marketing services disciplines, the agencies, but inside of companies and organizations as well. A recent McKinsey report notes that when asked about the most influential stakeholders, executives expect government entities and regulators, as well as customers, to have the greatest effect on their company's value. Communicators, therefore, need to be integrated closely with their government relations leaders, investor relations, legal, finance, HR, and other key stakeholders who make necessary partners in how to develop strategies to adapt to these complex issues that impact reputation. It also means, and this is something I feel really passionately about, that collaboration is increasingly becoming the killer app. I think the most successful companies are all about how different functional areas collaborate, different people and teams, team of teams, if you will, collaborate inside of companies. Thirdly, communicators must be diversifiers. The nature of what we do for the range of companies, organizations, and industries, and their evolving audience demographics means that the makeup of our workforce must continue to evolve. On one level, the expertise needed to convey and to become effective storytellers in some cases requires highly specialized talent. It could be PhDs who understand the science behind the medicines we're promoting. It could be former government officials that are part of an agency environment that understand public-private partnerships. Or it could be technology gurus that have particular subject matter expertise. On another level, though, we need to marry that kind of talent with television producers for live video content and UX designers for engaging digital platforms. So it's a very dynamic environment. And clearly, with all that, there is still very much of a demand for generalists and specialists. You don't have to be a specialist to thrive in this environment. On another level, we must ensure that ethnic and all types of diversity and inclusion are at the heart of our industry going forward. We are in the business of connecting people and ideas, and cultural agility is vital. A diversity of people, experiences, perspectives, and opinions help foster a limitless source of the creativity and innovation that's at the heart of our industry. And an inclusive environment encourages the open idea sharing that empowers people to create the best solutions. We're now seeing how diversity and inclusion are becoming important drivers of reputation. More and more companies are recognizing that having diverse management teams, diverse boards, and diverse workforces are tied to better financial performance. We must build a workforce as diverse as the companies, organizations, and customers we serve, and as diverse as the audiences we're trying to reach. And that's true across countries and across cultures. And finally, communicators should seize the opportunity to make a difference. And this is also something I feel really passionately about. All of you here are developing a wonderful skill set and expertise, and I think we have a great opportunity to apply that to make the world a better place. Purpose-driven leadership has become central to a company's mission. Whether you're an agency or whether you're a company in any part of the world, that means doing well by doing good, driving positive results for business, but while also positively impacting the world around us. Like Unilever's Bright Future program, to build a world where everyone, particularly children, lives well and lives sustainably. Paul Pullman, when he talks about Unilever, he talks about social purpose. That's the core of that enterprise. Stella Artois, the Buy a Drink program that we're fortunately a part of, helps provide solutions for women in developing countries without access to clean water. No doubt, living here in North Carolina, you've witnessed a recent dynamic we call CEO activism. People increasingly expect CEOs and companies to speak out on important social issues, even ones that are controversial. Millennials feel that way in particular. Some of you might feel that way. Weber Shandwick just completed some new research that shows 40% of American adults believe it's the CEO's duty to engage with and speak out on hot-button issues. We've seen that play out in recent months around the bathroom law here in North Carolina, with several companies voicing their opinions about the legislation. At the same time, though, I think clearly our research also shows how speaking out on these types of issues has risks and rewards. More than 3 in 10 Americans hold a less favorable view of CEOs who speak out on issues that are not clearly tied to the company's core business. So the risks and rewards that come with engaging in major or controversial issues must be considered. For us as communicators, it means we're in a position to influence society in a bigger, more impactful way. We're in the communications industry, and now we're being called upon to create big ideas that help raise awareness, generate greater engagement, and deliver impact across a broad set of critical business and social issues. So I wanted to leave you with a compelling example. This year marks 1 year, some of you might be familiar with this, but the UN General Assembly, which is taking place in New York City this weekend, creating all kinds of traffic problems. So I'm happy to be here in Chapel Hill today. But the General Assembly last year convened to set an ambitious agenda for the next 15 years, outlining what they call the Global Goals for Sustainable Development. 17 goals that outline a transformative vision for a better world. I'm proud to say that Weber Shandwick last year dedicated more than 15,000 hours of pro bono work and completed more than 150 client assignments that touch all 17 of these global goals. Campaigns that span poverty, hunger, gender equality, economic growth, and more. And I think I want to bring that to life a little bit. I'm going to show, close with a quick video, and I'll just give you an appreciation for what that work looks like. And then I'm looking forward to having a lively conversation with my friends on the stage here.
Served as food ambassador since 2009, traveling to Rwanda, Haiti, and Guatemala, and now Ecuador.
It gets emotional for me because it is really, really hard to see some of their situations. I love going on these trips.
Feminism, by definition, is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities.
Spend 200 million hours a day collecting water. Well, what if we could give them that time back and stop those journeys so they could start new ones of their own?
deserves a round of applause. Thank you. And Timothy's notes, there isn't a job or a skill you guys are learning out there that isn't part of this repertoire of work that's being done under the name of PR these days. That's content, it's production, it's television, it's writing, it's words, it's everything. So, again, hashtag Sarratt Lecture, S-A-R-R-A-T-T. Make sure you do a tweet out there. Q&A, Rick Clancy is 30 years in the PR business, and he's our inaugural professor of the practice, bringing PR know-how and experience and values to our students, and he's the one who was able to engage Andy and to come down today. And we have two of our terrific students who are going to be part of the conversation. This is the repertoire that we always do with our lectures. Have a chance to have the guests also meet our professors and our students. So first, Vanessa Watson, active with her sorority, Phi Beta Chi. She's a program intern in the UNC Alumni Association. Last summer, she worked for NASCAR, and she's particularly interested in sports marketing and communication. And Peyton Collier, closest to me, president of the PRSSA, the PR Student Society of America. This year, it is simply on fire, and I think part of the energy is Peyton that she's brought to it. She was part of the Crash campaign last year, and it's coming up this year. You want to join it, she'll tell you about it. And both of them are actively looking for jobs, Andy, so they'll be giving you their resumes. So, Rick, take it away.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Andy. I'm delighted to be joined by two great student leaders. Thank you for joining. Let me kick it off just by asking you, Andy, there's a lot of societal benefit, corporate social responsibility reflected in your client work. Is that typical of your engagements with your clients, or highlighted those for the sake of this audience?
I think it's becoming more central to what we do. And I think I referenced Paul Pullman and Unilever. It's actually quite fascinating and striking what companies like Unilever are doing, putting purpose as a core theme to how they go to market. Even affects how they think about the long-term versus short-term results. So I think clearly companies, or I should say consumers, care a lot more today about the company behind the brand. And that's what has a major influence, certainly, on purchasing decisions. So more and more of the work we do has a purpose element, it's CSR type orientation. It's probably one of the fastest growing parts of our business. Some of it candidly is pro bono, or what we call low bono, which we sort of a little bit sometimes under certain circumstances, but a lot of it is because our people around the world want to do certain types of work in their communities to address some societal issues. But in the corporate sphere, it's becoming a big part of our business.
You know, the other thing is bullish on the future of public relations, and that's a good omen for the students who are here today. While at the same time, we talk about investing in content marketing, social, digital, working with colleagues in advertising and different areas of marketing. What does the future hold for public relations, even in terms of if you look at the landscape of who you compete with? Are we all coming together as one integrated marketing communications operation here, or will there still be a role for PR that stands on its own?
Well, I have strong opinions on that. Even though there's certainly a blurring of the lines, and what you see across various disciplines, everybody's doing a little bit of everything in terms of the nature of work. When I go to the Cannes International Festival of Creativity, which is a really interesting experience because you get to see the best creative work from all around the world. And one of the components of that festival is there's awards. And you sit there and you watch the awards in different categories. You look at the advertising awards, you look at the media awards, and you look at the public relations awards. Any one of those programs that I see, in almost every instance, could have fit into the other category. Now, that said, I touched on a little bit of this in my remarks, but I feel really strongly that public relations people have never been held in higher regard. I think the kind of advice we provide is so important in today's complex world. The type of subject matter expertise that public relations practitioners have is quite additive and quite different than what sometimes you find in other disciplines. agencies kind of characterizing themselves in different ways, I think that's a big lost opportunity. We're in a growing business, and I think public relations is a very distinctive way to differentiate from some of the other marketing disciplines.
I'm going to give my colleagues a chance to fire on what else here. Peyton, you represent the Public Relations Student Society of America and your finger on the pulse of what the students are thinking.
Is this working? No, I'm doing it. Okay, good. So, like Mr. Quincy was just saying, I'm with PRSSA, which is the PR club in the NJ school. Shameless plug. Encourage all of you to check it out. We're doing a lot of really exciting stuff this year. So sorry.
Right, I feel like Robert Campbell.
I figured you would keep it. So something that's kind of an elephant in the room in the industry of PR is women in the business and how there's not exactly a good representation of women in on the executive team of a lot of public relations advertising firms. Shandwick is really interesting because, like you said, they'll have a lot of women on their executive board. So just wanted
That's why
to,
we're doing so well.
well, and kind of doing that. So just kind of wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a real shift in the industry. I think public relations agencies, there's some amazing women that run some of the best things in the world. Tapco, Cohen, my leadership team is 65%. I think that's changing and will continue to change. I think there's more, if you want to see it change faster, and it should, because of talent. I think it's a particular problem, candidly, in the advertising industry, which has been widely reported, where, for whatever set of reasons, the heritage in the creative community is such that you don't see as many women creative directors as exist. That too is changing. And I think it will continue to change, but, I sort of alluded to this in the remarks as well. I think, it's not only the right thing to do, it's sort of a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you have? If your talent, if people of color are your best talent, if women are your best talent, why wouldn't they be in a leadership role? I don't understand why the industry hasn't moved more quickly, but I certainly think that it is a high priority, and there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of initiatives across the agency and the industry more broadly.
So give us some thoughts on all that one. You were talking off stage.
Yes, I was very appreciative that when I went to your website, most of what I saw were women in leadership roles, even in the Americas, Asia. I was very excited to see that.
Well, I think it's one of the things that makes our company special. We put talent forward. Whoever the best people are, it's a meritocracy, and we're fortunate to have amazing teams and amazing women running a lot of our different operations. So it's part of our success for sure.
So I know I've seen a bunch of seniors in the room, and this might be a great opportunity for me to talk about Shandwick some more, but what are the advantages and disadvantages of starting in-house PR versus an agency?
Well, I think that sometimes people who are contemplating their career choices overthink that. I think, to me, it's more about what type of experience is particularly interesting. What company, whether it's a corporation here or in New York or anywhere in the world, is one that's aligned with your values, perhaps makes an interesting product that you can get jazzed without supporting somehow. And I talk a lot about culture. I think you really want to feel great about the people you're going to be working with, and that's where you're going to have the best experience. That's where you're frankly going to make you happy. So that's, I think, the things to look for when you're exploring different job options. Sometimes people say that if you go into an agency environment, you might have some broader exposures across different areas, work for many clients. I've always loved the agency business because of that. You're an intellectually curious people, you're going to have a lot of exposures that way to different companies trying to solve different problems or promote different products or whatever the issue might be. But there are some amazing companies even locally, like here, like Lenovo, where you can have such a rich experience and learn so much about and go deep on a company and have a terrific experience in that sense. So there's no right formula. I think starting out one way or the other might, for whatever set of reasons, seem a little bit more appealing. But I would keep an open mind, and there's always room to pivot and go across to have different experiences. Also, nonprofits offer. There's some amazing nonprofits that are desperate for wonderful communicators who can really have even starting out can make a really big impact. So I would encourage you to keep that in your consideration set as well.
Andy, you talk a lot about values, you talk about culture. How do you manage a culture and a system of values and a vision when you have an organization so spread out around the world, 4,000 employees, and is it $500–600 million worth of business that you track? It's come a long way since the days when you started at Bozon & Jacobson with maybe 30 or 40 people.
Well, I think part of what we do with an organization is what we advise our client organizations to do, which is communicate a lot, sometimes over-communicate, be a visible presence. I just walk around Nazi style, so I'm on airplanes a lot, not just to meet with our clients around the world, but to meet with our teams and have an appreciation for what our people are thinking, what they're worried about, what their aspirations are, have a good sense of what they're doing. I think you just need to always focus on how to create that spirit so that people embrace their local cultures and are really jazzed about the work they may be doing on any given day for a client. But they also feel part of something bigger. And they can only feel part of something bigger if they understand the vision and the values of the company. They know the management of the company. They hear a lot about what the companies are, what the strategy is, what the issues are, good or bad. And so I think that's what is some of the secret sauce. You have to really get out there, and it doesn't happen by itself, really. And we're fortunate. We have a lot of people that have worked for our firm for a long time, and so who are in essence ambassadors for what we're trying to do and the kind of spirit we're trying to create. It's the kind of organization culture we want to see. So it's not ever about one person. It's about a team and having the right team who can get out there and spend time.
Well, you mentioned the long-term folks that work with you. Some of the industry studies, like the 4As, the ad agency associations, they said that agencies of all kinds, it's not unusual, they have an average of about 25% annual turnover, some a lot more than that, but you've managed to keep it, I think, in the low double digits roughly, which is a testament.
Yeah. Well, it's something that that's what keeps me up at night, really. How do you? A lot of people talk, and certainly it's high in your minds, like how do you get a job, right? And we certainly attract a lot of talent, but a lot of what keeps me up is how do you retain talent? How do you make sure you're creating a great career path for people and creating opportunities for people? And that's why they stay. They stay because they feel invested. And it doesn't have to be Weber Channel for a company in the professional services space. That's true everywhere. I think when people feel investments, think they have equity with an organization, that's going to keep them moving for a while.
So as the place I just kind of touched on, you've been with Weber Shandwick since before it was Weber Shandwick. So under 12, yeah. So I think just kind of touching on that, you've kind of been there with the agency since it was 40 people to now 4,000. And with that growth, you see for yourself, or specifically for your employees, a difference in how challenging the work is for them with the growth of the company.
Well, I think you have to calibrate all that. So you need to make sure you're scaling the organization from a talent perspective so that you have the right number of people to people, and I project that I'm pretty bullish about the sector, and I think we're going to continue to see a robust environment for hiring. I think there's always those issues around work-life balance, and the worst thing that we can do is throw our people in there and just have them burn out. Because we're well and they're not going to really do it. I speaking with some of the students earlier today, I think that people should never hesitate to raise their hands if they think they've got too much on their plate. Like, people respect hearing that, not they don't do that. And even though you would want to always have your supervisor mindful of what your situation is, sometimes that individual, he or she, might be in another place thinking about something else. So I think it's important always to get a feel for that. It gets back to the culture too. There's a lot of organizations that are, through again, across industries, that's the expectation. And you're going to work and work and work. That's why some people do with free food at 9 o'clock at night. But you have to decide what's important for you all. And in your own due diligence, you'll learn a lot about companies and what the culture's like and what the work ethic is like. But the challenge for me is always to get the ratios, so we have the people to deliver, and we're not killing people, working with people.
So there's some advice: don't get a job where people are getting killed.
I just have a question about what has been your most rewarding client or campaign that you've been involved in?
Well, sometimes in our profession, there's a lot of work we do, which I'm certainly really proud of, and it's fun to talk about with my friends and family, because it's very visible. It's, some of the clients you saw on the screen earlier, whether it's Anheuser-Busch or GM or Microsoft or whatever it might be. I guess one of the things I'm most proud of, sometimes it's the smaller clients that people don't often hear about. In my own personal experience, I represented a company called Replay Energy 30 years ago, and they wind-up radios for the developing world. And it's people think about radio as theater, music, it's entertainment. In the developing world, they use these radios to educate people who don't have access to electricity to wind up radios, and they don't have teachers. So the curriculum is on the radio. So I met this really interesting social entrepreneur who was promoting this product. He wanted to bring it to the United States. We took on the assignment. They were headquartered in South Africa, and they had a really interesting, another part of the story that they used disabled workers and battered women. That was their workforce. And it caught the interest of Nelson Mandela. And when we did a plant opening in Cape Town, we invited Nelson Mandela to speak there. And that was probably the most extraordinary thing that I ever experienced, not just in a professional context, but in a personal context. And Nelson Mandela actually said to me before the event, he said, "Andy, what do you think I should say?" I almost started to cry. There's nothing that I would say that Nelson Mandela. But it's those types of experiences that in public relations in that field that you often have those opportunities. And sometimes you don't see them coming. You see some of the obvious things. You know who the agency's big clients are. But there's a lot of interesting work that we do. Consumer education programs, work around the world. We do a lot of work with the Gates Foundation. It's pretty cool stuff. It's pretty interesting. So you got to do a deep dive when you're doing your search for different types of potential positions.
Susan's come back up on the stage, I think, to see if maybe you
Well, two things. For Jubilee, Andy, I had that wind-up radio at Carnegie Corporation of New York, which is where I was working on 9/11, and I carried that across the city as we were trying to evacuate New York, and turned that on for all the people who were around me that day. But we worked with South Africa, so We wanted to give 1 or 2 questions. The kids have classes, they go on, that's why some of our students have had to leave to go to new classes, but I wanted to make sure we had 1 or 2 questions in the audience. Is there anyone? I have one that I know you're going to want the answer to, but I want to make sure that you get to ask a question. Yes, back there. Tell us your name, shout it out, and I'll repeat it if need be. Stand up. So I'll repeat it real quick. If somebody works in a lot of video and you emphasize that, do you work with in-house video producers or outside?
Well, we do a lot in-house, because we create more and more live programming for clients around the world. So you think about what we might have done 5 years ago, we do a big press conference. Now we do a big live broadcast. And so we have teams of people in studios around the world in some of the major markets. But from an industry perspective, a lot of agencies outsource production, post-production. So there's a lot of opportunity, whether you wind up in a production firm, you're still going to be doing really cool stuff because that's, maybe coming from a major agency, but it's still the same client work and still interesting material. So, I think the demand for video expertise is only going to increase. I talked about video influence, and that is a phenomenon. I think things will always change, and what's going to be the next thing with video, I think the way people engage with content now is huge. If you have a creative flair for that or strong on the production side, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for it.
Last question. Anyone else want on out there? Make sure you get your chance. Okay, then I'm going to ask, what would our students who are going for that first job, what should they think they might make if they work in New York or they work in Charlotte? What's sort of an entry-level salary?
That's a really hard question.
I know, but they got to negotiate a little bit. Where should they be thinking?
Well, I'm going to hedge a little bit. I think it depends on, even though you're just graduating, we do take into account the experience you have, right? So sometimes people have what they all, the internship have a pretty robust, you got a good bachelor, So I think most agencies and marketing services, when they're starting out in the New York market, you're probably looking at somewhere between $40,000 and $52,000. It's a pretty broad range. Sometimes it'll be lower, sometimes it'll be higher. The more specialized you are, the entry-level person, the more money you might make initially. Doesn't mean that that'll always be true. So if you're a healthcare specialist, you might have demand a higher salary or be in line for a higher salary. Or if you have a particular kind of hero. Sometimes we hire people entry level who already have a law degree. And we use them in our crisis practice. So there are a lot of variables, but that would be sort of a general.
And the answer to that is that you got to find a roommate or you got to have an aunt who lives somewhere near so you can live well and save that money. I think, Andy, you've given us a great insight into the business. Peyton's got a gift for you because we want to send out so you remember it, and in a good UNC bag. And I think that he has proven one of those questions. You can have a meaningful life in a job in communications and PR. You can have what you want. He told you to think about what you really want and then go forward within that agency world. Thanks so much for being with us today.